Hi friends, hi everyone. Welcome to today's lecture. And in the today's topic, we would be discussing about the fundamental aspects of NMR and ESR, and also some concepts of NMR and how exactly the NMR is useful technique in spectroscopy and further so on. So first, welcome to my channel, and if you like my lectures, please subscribe and share them among your friends. So first thing is NMR. So NMR stands for nuclear magnetic resonance. So what is nuclear magnetic resonance? That means the nuclei is in resonance with some certain magnetic field. So that technique which we identify the how much resonance my nuclei with respect to certain magnetic field due to the magnetic field of nucleus is called as nuclear magnetic resonance. You can even call it as coherent spectroscopy. Coherent. What is meant by coherent? Between resonance between two things is called as coherent. So here the fundamental is nuclei. Our nuclei in a molecule will be in resonance with the magnetic field. The extent of magnetic resonance is studied here in the terms of nuclear magnetic resonance. Now the question comes whether all nuclei are NMR active, and if not, why, and what type of nuclei are NMR active and what type of nuclei are NMR inactive. So let us see the concept called as magnetic quantum number, which explains you about the I value. So all the nuclei which have I value not equal to 0 are NMR active. So this is the fundamental information you should know before studying any basic concepts of NMR. However, already my lectures are available on NMR. You can see where I have explained with slides as well as my old lectures. So this is the fundamental information where I is not equal to 0 is the basic requirement of NMR activity. So let us see certain nuclei and how they are NMR active. So to become NMR active, we will generally see the sum of protons and neutrons in a nuclei. So suppose if it is even or odd or even, now your I value if it is 0, that means the molecules will be NMR inactive. For that you have a molecules called as carbon 16, oxygen 18 and sulfur 36. So this is the fundamental information of your NMR. Further, if you have odd value where you have I is 1/2, here you have a molecule as 1H, 13C, etc. Further, if you have value of 3/2, that is I value is about 3/2, here you have iodine 127 and bromine 11 and so on. And suppose you have a even value, that is integral 1, that is you have your molecule of H2 and so on. So this is the fundamental information which you need to know before studying the NMR. For that, it should not be non-zero. That means the nuclei with 0 magnetic moment is NMR inactive, whereas the other magnetic moment molecules are NMR active. For your pharmaceutical applications as well as organic applications, we generally focus on the I value half to be the NMR active nuclei. Okay, this is the fundamental information. So now let us see one concept called as Zeeman effect. So there are two effects to explain one thing is called as splitting of spectral line. Now suppose this is spectral line. If it is in the absence of magnetic field, there is no splitting. Now suppose if I apply a magnetic field of B0, so what happens is there is a splitting of magnetic field, splitting of spectral line. Now this splitting of spectral line in the presence of magnetic field is called as Zeeman effect. This is a fundamental information where you need to know, that is splitting of spectral line in the presence of magnetic field is called as Zeeman effect. Suppose if you use electric field, that is if you use electric field in the place of magnetic field, the effect is called as Stark effect. So the splitting of spectral line in the presence of electric field is Stark effect, in the presence of magnetic field is your Zeeman effect. These are the fundamental information which you need to know before studying the aspects of any NMR studies. Further, let us see some more concepts of NMR. So similarly to the NMR, you have a concept called as ESR, that is electron spin resonance. Here we will see about the molecule which contains the unpaired electrons. So unpaired electrons are generally paramagnetic in nature. So these molecules which are paramagnetic in nature are ESR active. These electrons again they will be splitting into two spectral lines in the presence of magnetic field. So again there is a concept of Zeeman effect, study of spectral line of electrons, that is paramagnetic behavior. So here in NMR, the nuclei behave as a bar magnet. Okay, what is a bar magnet? The magnet which contains two poles, that is positive and negative poles, and here whatever the nuclei which you are going to study, these nuclei behave as a bar magnets. So what happens and what is their behavior? Let us see in a diagrammatic representation. Suppose you have a nuclei and it is having some cloud. These nuclei, whatever the nuclei which are in motion, they are randomly placed. So assume it as nuclei. They are randomly placed around its orientation. Now when I apply a magnetic field, what happens is these nuclei orient themselves either towards the field or against the field. So such orientation is generally represented as this one, where this B0 is the applied magnetic field which causes orientation of your nuclei in certain position. Now one fundamental thing you need to know, because the distribution of electrons in the excited and ground state. If you see in the almost all spectroscopic techniques, the ground state population is highly populated. So that means the total number of excess electrons are present in this ground state, whereas in the nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, what you observe is the ground state is only slightly excessively populated. So this is the fundamental difference between the other spectroscopic technique. That's why even small amount of change you can initiate in a molecule, you can get your very good signal strength in your molecule. This is the fundamental information you need to know before studying the NMR. So now what happens exactly here is the splitting, what you observe in NMR, that is your spectral line is splitted. Okay, this is your spectral line in the presence of your magnetic field splitting. Now the energy difference between the created spectral line E is equal to mu into H naught by I. This is the fundamental information you need to know, where mu stands for, mu is equal to magnetic moment of the nuclei, and H naught is equal to the applied field strength, that is magnetic field strength, and I is your magnetic quantum number of that certain molecules. So this is the fundamental information you need to know. If you want larger separation, you require stronger magnetic field. If you are smaller separation, you need smaller magnetic field. Now again, the magnetic field range from 4 megahertz to 900 megahertz is generally practiced in your NMR spectroscopy. Suppose if you take for ESR, the field strength is up to 10 power 4 to 10 power 6 megahertz. So this is the fundamental difference between NMR and ESR, 4 megahertz to 900 megahertz. So this is stands for NMR, whereas this stands for your ESR. This is a fundamental information. Next thing is you are supposed to know about two things. NMR is of two types. One is continuous wave NMR, that is your CW NMR. Next one is your FT NMR. Now what is FT NMR and what is CW NMR? This is also differences you need to know. CW NMR is a continuous wave NMR and FT NMR is your Fourier transformation NMR. What is the difference between these two is what is applied at a constant level and what is swept in the molecule is different. Let us see in a CW NMR what happens. In a CW NMR, the magnetic field is kept constant. Magnetic field is kept constant, that is constant magnetic field, and the radio frequency is swept. And here in this technique, you did not require any cryo NMR technique. So simple normal NMR or electric magnet is very useful for this technique, where you use a electric magnetic field constant and you sweep the RF value. Now you change in radio frequency signal. That means what are the frequency signal which your molecule observes. That is the fundamental interpretation of your the various nuclei in their position. Suppose different nuclei observe different radio frequency. Now change in the radio frequency is as an output as a signal. This is the fundamental in your CW NMR. Now whereas in your FT NMR, what generally we do is we get and we keep the radio frequency constant. That means and we generally apply strong magnetic field. This is swept. So what happens in the presence of strong magnetic field, the nuclei absorb electromagnetic radiation in the region of, that is radio frequency, that is a microwave, and there is splitting of molecules either with the field or against the field. This energy difference depends upon the total amount of the molecules, so total amount of magnetic strength we use in the spectroscopic technique. So this is the fundamental difference between your CW NMR and FT NMR. Now what exactly we generally see in NMR is, so we have an scale of NMR starting from 0 to 10 or more than 10 for your 1H NMR. Now here what happens, you get a different signal for your different things. Generally this is for 1H NMR. So what exactly we use as is the reference one. That means the reference of your NMR is your tetramethylsilane, because of strong electropositivity of your silane molecule, the molecule is highly shielded and it is presented the value of 0, and this is for the reference, and all other the ppm shift is taken with respect to your tetramethylsilane. So this is the fundamental information you need to know. One more thing is whether when you change the magnetic field of an instrument, whether your shift value changes. So let us see that value. So what happens, suppose if you take 400 megahertz NMR instrument, now the frequency required for proton is 400 hertz. Suppose if you take a 300 megahertz NMR, the frequency of required for making excitation of your proton NMR is your again 300 hertz. So this is the fundamental transformation from your instrument NMR to the proton NMR. That means whenever you change an instrument, your shift value of an NMR signal changes with respect to the value of hertz. So that is this shift is field dependent. However, the NMR scale is converted into an field independent signal. So how you convert a field dependent NMR signal to a field independent NMR signal is you use a formula. Simple, this is shift in ppm is equal to shift of sample in hertz minus shift of reference divided by frequency of your NMR instrument into 10 power 6. This will give you a scale of ppm which is independent of your magnetic field. Even though you use 100 megahertz, 200 megahertz, 300 megahertz, 400, 500, 900, whatsoever you use, this value which you get in ppm, that is independent of your field strength. So this is the field independent scale. Now there are certain scales. You have a scale called as delta scale, and again you have a scale called as tau scale. So delta scale ranges from 0 to 10. So that means if the value is 0, it is highly shielded. If the value is 10, it is highly deshielded. And again the value is delta is equal to tau is equal to sigma shift minus that means shift minus 10 minus shift value. So this is the scale of tau and this is the scale of delta. So this is the fundamental information. That means in delta scale you see the lower shift, this is for ppm, is for 0 ppm is for TMS, and the higher shield for aldehydes and carboxylic acids. Whereas tau scale represent 10 minus delta, that means whatever the shift you see, that is subtracted from the 10 and you make a scale. So these scales are very old scales and now these scales are obsolete. So you should not bother about these scales. Now let us see an interesting concept called as spin relaxation and spin lattice relaxation. This is the fundamental information which most of the students gets confused. So let me explain you in a very simplest fashion. Suppose taken this, assume this is at the ground where a 400 meters relay is going on. So this is a very useful example. Now my running race starts from this point. Once I apply a magnetic field of B0, I allow all the participants to run at the same time. So what happens? These run together and reach certain points. Suppose the first runner is your Usain Bolt, is very fast, so he has moved very fastly up to this point. So the second runner, assume it as your Milkha Singh, so he runs with certain speed and he also reaches up to certain point. Suppose the third runner you assume as your Hima Das, she also very fast runner, she also reaches up to certain point. So these different points they have reached. Now what happens at a certain level, the oscillation of your nuclei, if this has been transferred to the neighboring nuclei, that means the speed at which it is transferred to another nuclei, that is neighboring nuclei, so there is called as, this one is called as spin relaxation. So in this spin relaxation, what happens, the the spin of one nuclei is transferred to the neighboring spin, not to the nuclei. This is the fundamental information which you need to know. Thereby what happens, there is a disturbance in the the difference in ground state and excited state created by this relaxation. The another relaxation is called as spin lattice relaxation. What happens, the spinning nuclei, so this is your spinning nuclei which spins around the axis. This spinning nuclei will relax and give to the lattice components. So the lattice magnet, this is transferred to another nuclei. This is called as longitudinal relaxation. The earlier the concept is called as, it is the relaxation to the one oscillation is transferred to the another oscillation. This type of relaxation is called as transverse relaxation. So these two difference you need to know, that is spin relaxations are called as transverse relaxation, spin lattice relaxation is called as longitudinal relaxation. This is the fundamental information you need to know in NMR. Let us see what happens exactly in NMR. So again there is a concept called as spin coupling, spin coupling. This is also called as scalar coupling, which generally observed in proton spectrum. Even sometimes you can see even the splitting with carbon and hydrogen. However, we generally see a spectrum that is a decoupled spectra. Decoupled means you remove the coupling between two things. Suppose you have a coupling between carbon and hydrogen also, you simply eliminate the coupling. So this is called as decoupling. We will see the concept of decoupling in the next lecture. However, we will see about spin coupling or scalar coupling. Now what happens exactly is, let us see with some example. Let us see with a simple concept of ethanol. So here in the ethanol, let me draw the structure CH3, CH2, OH. Now there are two concepts here, that is shielding and deshielding. What is meant by shielding is, suppose you have a molecule, the electron cloud on the molecule, creates secondary magnetic field. So what is a primary magnetic field? Primary magnetic field is not the nuclei itself is a primary magnetic field. However, the circulating electrons on the molecule creates a secondary magnetic field. This secondary magnetic field hinders the incoming magnetic field to act on the molecule. So this concept of hindrance is called as shielding. So in a spectrum, so if your molecule is shielded, always it will be in the upscale, that is shielding is towards the upscale, and whereas deshielding, it is also called as downfield. So that means the field strength deshielded, downfield. Now what is deshielded? Now whatever the electron cloud is here, it is not attracted towards the OH, whereas the electron cloud on the CH2 is clearly dragged towards the OH. So now what happens? There is no electron cloud to hinder the B0. Now this molecule is affected by B0. That means these protons are deshielded, and this will be downfield in the ppm scale with respect to your TMS. This fundamental concept is called as deshielding in your NMR. Now let us see the one more concept called as splitting. So here in the splitting, you have a formula called as 2n into I plus 1. So this tells you how you can even use the formula as n plus 1 for proton spectrum. However, it is advisable to use this formula to use for any concept of your spectrum. Let us see by applying this formula to my molecule of ethanol. So CH3, CH2, OH. Now I want to see the total number of splitting on this proton. Now these protons have a number of 3 protons. So now my n value is 3. N is equal to 3. That means total number of neighboring protons. And I know the proton, the magnetic quantum number is 1 by 2. Now I'll substitute this value into this and I will see 2 into n is 3 into 1 by 2 plus 1. That means 2 into 2 3 are 6 and 3 plus 1. Now the splitting is in 4 field. So now if we see about this methyl group, how many splitting occur on this molecule. Now this molecule has these protons have a neighbor of 2. So let me do that. 2 into, now my n becomes 2, 4, 2 into my I is again 1 by 2 plus 1. So my total splitting is 3. So this is the fundamental information. Let me see in the graph how it appears. So this is my scale of NMR. So this is my reference standard, that is tetramethylsilane. It's very simple. Now I need to see the structure I will draw here. CH3, CH2 and OH. Okay. Now I'll see about this proton. This is very distillate, so it will go downfield. So, and this with respect to this one, so I'll get n plus 1, simply I'll get 3 plus 1, 4. So now I'll get 4 protons up to here. But however, you should remember that you have each signal, so that will go into an doublet for each proton. Total it is, you will get, suppose you have one proton will go into 1 plus 3, 4, another proton you will have 1 plus 3, 4. So totally you will get, once you integrate, this will come as 2 integration. That is generally integrated. Now if you see about these 3, you have a neighbor of 2. So this is very shielded, so it will come around upfield. So now you have 3 protons, so that you will get 3, and all the 3 are same, so there is no further information of here. Also all the 2 are same, but however each individually interacts. So now protons on same carbon never interact with each other because of what? They have isotropy. They are not different. Whereas these 2 protons are anisotropic. That means they are different in field. Now you should know one concept called as effective field strength and that is effective field strength and induced field strength. So what do you mean by effective field strength and induced field strength is, all the protons in a molecule absorb with the same effective field strength but different induced field strength. So what does it mean? Suppose I apply a radio frequency fixed, the effective field strength absorbed by all the protons is same, but the induced field strength, that is the magnet, each and every nuclei based upon the electronic environment, it absorbs different magnetic fields, so it's certain range, so the induced field strength is different in compared to the effective field strength. So this is a fundamental information you need to know. So there is one more concept called as phase. What is phase? So this is a fundamental concept. So to be in resonance, suppose you see 2 waves propagating. So this is the waves. Again you have one more wave propagation in the linear fashion. Now when you superimpose these 2 waves on each other, what happens is, if there is a phase difference of is equal to pi, So that is called as constructive interference. If the phase difference is not equivalent to 5, that is either maybe constructive interference, or if it is having a negative value, it is maybe having a destructive interference. So whether it is a constructive interference, whether also destructive interference, this matters much in your spectroscopy, that is especially in the NMR spectroscopy. So what happens exactly is the phase molecules. Now in the FTNMR, what generally we see is you apply this magnetic field on a molecule, and you apply radio frequency orthogonal to the magnetic field. So this is a radio frequency orthogonal to the magnetic field. When you apply radio frequency orthogonal to the magnetic field, the molecule have alignment. So you should know one thing, that these molecules do not align with the field in the absence of magnetic field. So in the presence of magnetic field B0, that is sorry, I should not draw this value here. This B0 value, in the presence of magnetic field, these molecules absorb certain radio frequency. That means in the absence of magnetic field, these molecules are randomly oriented. There is no proper orientation of these molecules, these nuclei. So what happens in the presence of magnetic field, these molecules are oriented only in a particular direction, that is in the Z plane. This is your Z plane in the present, and which absorbs radio frequency. Now once you remove this radio frequency, what happens? This molecule go back to its original position, that is randomness. Now the shift in time required for each nuclei varies with respect to its electronic cloud, that is secondary magnetic field. Now the variation in the molecules is studied as a signal. Now for that you use Fourier transformation, where time of shift from Z to X, Z axis to X axis, is converted to frequency domain. That means the time domain signal is converted to a frequency domain signal. That will give you the fundamentals of your flip in the molecules, which gives you an NMR signal. This is the fundamental information what you get in your NMR spectroscopy. Now this I already told you the fundamentals, and what is the phase value, how it is important is, now the omega is equal to gamma B naught in by 2 pi, 1 by 2 pi into gamma into B naught. This is the angular velocity with which the molecules are precising in its this is called precessional motion. So in the presence of magnetic field, this is the angular velocity, and gamma is your gyromagnetic ratio, and B0 is the magnetic field present. This is the fundamental information, what is the angular velocity. When the applied frequency is equal to omega by 2, 1 by 2 into omega naught, that is omega naught by 2 pi, this will cause a molecule to flip between one plane to another plane, that is from ground state to excited state. So here the concept of phase difference comes. So if the molecules are in phase, so there is causation of flipping of molecules from one state to another state, which is responsible for your NMR signal. This is the fundamental information in your NMR signal. Now let us see the concepts of even in 13C, what is the difference between 1H NMR and 13C NMR? So the 1H NMR, the 1H protons are highly abundant. So this is called as natural abundance is very high, somewhere around 97 to 96, whereas here in 13C it is very 0.01% of abundance. As the molecules are least abundant, you require strong magnetic field to be absorbed in this, used to be orientation, as well as the sample content. Here around at least 10 milligrams of sample is required, minimum quantity. However, in 1H you require, what do you say, at least very less amount, even 2 to 3 milligrams also you can even do 1H, even sometimes even in milligrams, microgram scale also you can perform NMR, provided how long you run the NMR instrument. So here also this is the fundamental information of your simple NMR spectroscopy. In the next lecture, we would be seeing the fundamentals of what you say, distortionless enhancement of polarization transfer, as well as solid state NMR, and how it works, the simple concepts, and how you remove the anisotropy and so on. So let us see in the next lectures. So if you like my lectures, please subscribe to my channel and share the lectures with your friends. Thank you.